Legends of Code. I'm Professor John Gallagher, and in this CircuitPython school lesson, we are going to work with the Adafruit VL53L1X. That's a time-of-flight distance sensor, not a baby of Elon Musk and Grimes. Distance sensors are super cool. They can tell how close an object is to a sensor, and this can be used for all sorts of things, including triggering an action when an object approaches, or preventing a moving robot from crashing into things. There are lots of different kinds of distance sensors, and depending on your definition, there may be some overlap between these categories. This particular sensor is a type known as a time-of-flight sensor. Now, this is different from the larger, cheaper, and usually less accurate two-cylinder ultrasonic sensors that you might have seen in some projects. Those sensors work by using sound, sort of like how a bat uses echolocation, but the sensor we're using in this lesson works with light. It's called a time-of-flight sensor because it measures the time it takes for light emitted by a tiny laser to bounce off an approaching object and fly back to the sensor. The light is invisible to the human eye, and the lasers aren't dangerous, so it's not like we're working with a space weapon. Now, even though this sensor is more expensive, I chose it for my university physical computing course because it reads a larger distance range with more accuracy than an ultrasonic sensor, plus it has this great STEMMA QT quick connector, so it's super easy to add to most projects. Now, you might see time-of-flight sensors in lots of applications, including drones, robotics, or as sensors used to count humans moving through an entrance. And you can buy time-of-flight sensors that detect objects in lots of different ranges. This one works from a range of approximately 30 millimeters to 4,000 millimeters. For my fellow Americans, that's a range from about 1 inch to a whopping 13 feet. And now this sensor also has a narrower cone of detection than ultrasonic sensors, meaning that it'll identify objects right in front of it rather than those approaching from the sides. This works well for most projects where you want to respond only when something lines up right in front or right below a sensor, and you don't want to respond to things at the edges. Now, the cone of detection for this sensor is about 27 degrees. With some advanced coding, which I've never done, you can apparently also reduce the region of interest for detecting an object. And if you want to find out more about the specifications of the sensor, remember you can always look at the sensor's datasheet, which is usually posted on the seller or manufacturer's website. So let's find out how to use this. If you have a STEMMA QT port on your board, you can simply plug it into that port. If you're using a board like a Circuit Playground, and my students start their course with a Circuit Playground Bluefruit or CPB, you can clip a STEMMA QT cable like this to the Circuit Playground, clipping the red wire to the 3.3 volt pad, black to the ground pad, blue, which is SDA or the data cable, to pad A5, which is also labeled as SDA on Circuit Playground boards, and yellow, which is SCL or clock, clips to pad A4, which is labeled as SCL on the Circuit Playground. Now let's get this sensor working in CircuitPython. And I'm going to take a few shortcuts and not initialize some of the default values. If you're curious to learn more about this sensor, remember you can always see Adafruit's Learn Guide for the VL53L1X, and you can explore the sensor's documentation in the implementation notes on the Read the Docs website. Now, do be aware that there are a bunch of other time-of-flight sensors with different names, but they're very similar, so make sure that you're using the correct library for your sensor. Now, using the sensor is really easy. Make sure you import the Adafruit_VL53L1X sensor library into your code, and make sure that you've got this library inside the lib folder on your board. Now, the code below also uses the board and time library, so we'll make sure we import those too. And then we create an I2C object. Now, this is how you create an I2C object for a Circuit Playground board. But if you've got a Raspberry Pi Pico or a board with a built-in STEMMA QT port, this is probably the code you're going to use to set up I2C. Be sure to check the online documentation for your board if your I2C setup isn't working. Then once we create an I2C object, we can use this to create the VL53L1X sensor object, so we can use this sensor in our code. I'm going to name this simply distance_sensor. I think that's a much better name. And then we start the sensor up by calling the start ranging method on the distance sensor object that we just created. And then here in our infinite while true loop, we check to make sure that the sensor is ready at each iteration. We get a distance reading, and that's going to be in centimeters, not in millimeters and not in inches. And I store this in a variable called distance. And one thing to be aware of that isn't in the example code for the sensor, or at least it wasn't at the time of this recording, if you get an infinite reading, meaning there's nothing detectable in front of the sensor, and this sometimes happens if something quickly enters or exits the sensor range, then what the sensor returns isn't a number, it's none, the absence of value. So before we can do anything, we check to make sure that the distance is not equal to none, otherwise we might get an error. But if it's true that the distance is not equal to none, meaning we've got a number, then I also calculate inches using the standard centimeter to inch formula. The print statement down here prints centimeters, inches, and feet formatting to 1 decimal place, and this else bit isn't necessary, but I think that you might be curious how often you get a none reading, so I simply print out if we get a none infinity reading. How you deal with this in your builds depends on what you want to do if you have an infinite reading, but you do want to make sure that you've got the if part in here so that you don't get an error. Then to prepare for the next reading, we always need to call clear_interrupt on the distance sensor object. That just makes sure that we get a fresh reading the next time we use the sensor, and if I'm testing things out, I always sleep if I get a sensor reading just to slow down the printed output. So let's code this up and give it a try. So with your distance sensor plugged into your board, plug your board into your computer, and if you're new here, welcome. You may want to check out the earlier lessons in the playlist so you know how we got here. So I'll start with a comment. VL53L1X time-of-flight-distance-sensor.py, and I'll copy the name of the sensor because I'm going to add the package for the sensor to my project so that I get code completion and error detection in PyCharm, and then I'll use circup from the terminal to add this library to my CircuitPy volumes lib folder. So we'll head to PyCharm setting, and under the project name, select Python interpreter, click the plus sign. I'll paste in the sensor. The official CircuitPython libraries always start with Adafruit-CircuitPython, so I'm going to select this one here. Click Install Package, then click Close, then OK. Then I'll open the terminal, and at the prompt, I'll enter circup install Adafruit _ and paste in my sensor's name. Press Return. The library installs on my CircuitPy lib folder, and I'm ready to code. So we need to import board, time, Adafruit, and there we go. Code completion recognizes the name of the sensor, so I'll press return to accept this. I'll create my I2C object with I2C equals board.I2C, all caps, open and close parens. Then I'll create a distance sensor object named distance_sensor, and that's equal to my new library, Adafruit _VL53L1X dot, and I'm going to select VL53L1X. Thank you, code completion, passing in I2C, the I2C object I just created. Then we call distance_sensor dot start_ranging, open and close parens. That's going to start the distance sensing action. Then just so that I know my code is working, I'm going to print sensing distance. Then in while true, if distance_sensor dot data_ready colon, that makes sure you are indeed ready to receive a new sensor reading. I'll get that reading in a variable I'm going to call distance and set that equal to distance_sensor dot distance. Then I'll say if distance exclamation point equal, that means not equal, capital N none colon. If this happens, we've got a real number, not infinity or an error. Then, since I'm an American, I'm going to calculate inches. Sorry for those outside the US. Inches equals distance times 0.394. And for my metrically challenged countrymen, I'm going to print out centimeters, inches, and feet. So I'll say print, in between parentheses, F, in between double quotes, in between curlies, distance, the name of my distance variable, colon, space, dot 1F. That'll format the number to 1 decimal place. Outside of the curlies, I'll say CM, comma, space, then put in a new set of curlies. This is going to be inches, colon, space, dot 1F. Outside the curlies, IN, comma, space. And between this last set of curlies, I'm going to put in a little calculation. Inches /12, colon, space, dot 1F. Outside those curlies, FT, that's the calculation in feet. Then outdented, I'm going to put else colon in here to deal with the infinity and error. You would put some code below. In the sensor testing code, the only thing I'm going to do is print out a big bold string with a bunch of stars that says none/infinity. Just to demonstrate when we get this reading. Then I'll outdent and say distance_sensor dot clear_interrupt, open and close parens. This is necessary for this sensor to prepare for the next reading. And then just to slow down my print statements, I'll say time.sleep and in parens 0.2. Then let's open the terminal. I've got PyCharm running. I'm going to save and look at those sensor readings. So here I am at G4 Central with the window open. Let me pick up my CPB and my sensor and we'll get some readings. So you can see I'm getting some close readings while I've got this right in front of me. It's pointing right at me. I can wave my hand in front, but with the window open, I should get an infinite reading. So I'm moving my hand and you can see the sensor changing, but when I move out the window, whoa, I get some none-infinity readings. You wouldn't want to put that in a calculation or your code would crash. That's why we catch none and deal with it separately. Then around my office, back out again, more infinity readings. Pythonista, you're using lasers to detect distance. Pew pew! So with the code working, let's save this using the comment up top as the file name to our CircuitPython school folder, and then we'll close the outermost tab to get back to code.py, and I've got a challenge for you. And here is the challenge. So you want to attach a NeoPixel strand or strip to your board and light up more lights as you approach. And so that we can compare our code, let's react with a range of 150 centimeters to 30 centimeters. So a reading of above 150 centimeters, that's just under 5 feet, should have no LED lights turned on, but more LEDs should turn on increasingly as you approach the sensor, and you should have all lights turned on if you have a distance reading of 30 centimeters or less. That's just under 1 foot from the sensor. Now, if you want any hints, think about this. The range 150 centimeters to 30 centimeters gives us 120 different distance reading values. So it might be easier to subtract the distance from 30 so that we are considering values from 120 to 0. And then we need to use some basic algebra. So since we've got more readings, 120 in total, than we have number of lights. If you have a NeoPixel strip, that's probably got 30 LED lights on it. A strand probably has 20 lights on it. Then we need to figure out how many reading values or how many centimeters should trigger a new LED light to turn on. So you'll want to make that calculation first. And to make it easier to compare your code with my code, I'm going to call this value centimeters per light. Then we need to figure out the number of LEDs to light up based on our distance value from our sensor. So I'm going to call this LEDs on in my code. And you can use the same variable name so it's easier for us to compare. And again, that number should light up no LEDs in the light strip if it gives a reading of above 150 centimeters. And if you have a distance of 30 centimeters or lower, it should light up all of the LEDs. Now, once you have the number of LEDs, you could loop through all of the LEDs in your NeoPixel strip or strand, and you can turn on the value if it should be lit up, or you could turn it off if it shouldn't be lit up. Now, the techniques we use are similar to what we learned in the prior lesson when we worked with potentiometer readings and mapped those to the number of lights to light up. It's the same algebra, it's just that the two ranges that you're matching now are going to be different. Feel free to review that lesson if you need to. And also check with your instructor. For example, with my students in some semesters, I've asked my students to do this challenge on their own, then bring working code to class so that we can build a distance sensing luminaria lights together with materials that I'll provide in class and a box that they cut out using the Makerspace laser cutter. Always make sure that you write code so that you can easily change the number of LED lights if you're given different lights to work with. I hope that you appreciate the big learning that we had in this lesson on how time-of-flight sensors work, and specifically how to use the VL53L1X. You've got plenty of skills to make something awesome.